So, welcome to Sparkling Harmonies. We are your hosts, François,
And Louis,
and we are two friends who don't quite listen to the same music or genre.
but who are here to talk to you about everything and everything music related.
Yay! So, we are really happy to welcome our second guest on the show. She's an avid music fan, spent the last decade working within the music industry at various labels, promotion companies, and radio stations. She also worked as the editor-in-chief of Comfort Magazine, an online website where she met ours truly, Lydie. As the music export coordinator, she works on CIMA Global Export Service to help organize international showcasing and business opportunities for Canadian companies and their artists. Please welcome Jenia Schukov.
Yay!
Yay!
Hello.
Is there anything you'd like to add on what we just said about you?
No, I think that was pretty good. Summed everything up.
Perfect. So we're going to start with some questions, some quick, just fast fire questions to get to know you.
Perfect.
Go ahead, François.
Oh, what's your first album?
I think as a 90s kid, it was probably Spice Girls on cassette.
Oh my
nice.
gosh.
So, which part girl was your favorite?
That's hard. Probably Baby.
Baby Spice.
Too.
Yeah.
Me too. Oh.
Yeah, Lily's always choosing the blonde one. So,
And that's true.
That's
That's what
easy.
we've discovered. My favorite from when my childhood bands was always the blonde one.
Well, there you go. You're consistent.
And what's your most memorable experience with music?
It was probably recently. I went to see Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden, and I grew up on
wow.
Billy Joel, so that was pretty mind-blowing.
Oh, that
nice.
must have been really good. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big venue, right?
Oh yeah, and
like,
getting to
huge.
see Madison Square Garden was also part of the experience. But yeah, definitely that.
Oh,
That's
wow.
cool. Hold on to this during the quarantine lockdown time.
Mhm.
Sorry. What's a music guilty pleasure of yours?
I don't know if it's guilty, but I have a real obsession with
Oh,
Broadway music and musicals tracks, and I can't get enough of it. Play it a little bit too much.
That's not that bad.
so I'm
I don't know
just
if it's guilty.
pause right here because my computer is the one that's recording,
Mhm.
and you
Oh.
froze during your answer for me. So
So,
Maybe,
okay, I will just repeat. So,
yeah, sorry. Just want to make sure.
a musical guilty pleasure of yours?
It's I don't know if it's guilty, but probably Broadway soundtracks and musicals.
Oh, that's good. That's not. I don't think that's a guilty pleasure.
I don't know.
And what's your artist of the moment?
Probably Noah Reid.
Okay.
Yeah,
I will have to take note on that. Never heard of her before.
he was on Schitt's Creek. Yeah, he was one of the actors on there, and he's a singer, and his albums are just phenomenal.
So what music genre would that be?
He's kind of folky, I'd say.
Okay.
He's just singer-songwriter, folk, but very good. Highly recommend.
Perfect. We'll keep that in note.
So, and what's your song of the moment?
I think my song of the year is probably Older by Ben Platt.
So that's also somebody that I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm here to discover.
He was the original Evan Hansen on Broadway. He was also in
Oh.
Pitch Perfect, if you saw Pitch Perfect.
I
but-
didn't.
Oh, you gotta.
So fun fact about me, my mom calls me a movie retard. My mom.
She
Nice.
scores hard on you.
So I think you could get where.
Okay, yes, that makes sense.
And François, what have you been listening to these days?
I've been in a funny mood. So his name is Le Petit Béliveau. He's a guy from, I think he's from Nova Scotia, but he lives in Moncton right now. It's an
Mhm.
Acadian, and he's singing en Acadien, I guess. I don't know if I can translate it like that, but it's just funny. It's a mix of like chill pop and country. The guy is a meme lord. All these video clips are made by himself, and it's just joke after joke after joke, and it doesn't make sense, but it's funny, and I just quite enjoy it.
Okay. And for me, I've been listening to, so I think anybody who's been listening will know that I've been obsessed with Day 6 since May. I think François is tired of hearing me talk about them. But this week, it's a new song that's not from Day 6, but it's from one of the guys of Day 6. So it's not quite the same. It's, oh, I got a little blank here. What's the song name? It is from Young K of Day 6. It's a very good song. I've been listening to it on repeat since yesterday night.
Oh, and still K-pop style, or?
Yeah, but a little different. Because it's his solo stuff, so it's not as rock as Day 6.
Okay.
I've never even heard. I'll have to check them out too.
I love them. Like I've mentioned them multiple times a week.
Yeah. Since we began that show, Lily just bring me slowly on the K-pop dark side. So
Which is funny because I've only started listening to K-pop more seriously since quarantine started. Like this is a band that I discovered in July and have been listening to since, and almost nothing else.
Very nice.
So let's get into the more serious questions.
So I will start with explain me like I'm 5 question. What is CIMA and what is the goal behind it?
Okay, I'm glad you said like you were 5 because I can really only explain it like that. So CIMA is the Canadian Independent Music Association, and we are the not-for-profit trade association across Canada. So basically, we represent the independents. So anybody who's not associated with a multinational, so Sony, Warner, Universal.
Okay.
We have members like E1, Dynalone Records. So there could be bigger indies, but they're not associated with those 3. And we have 300 members. They're all small businesses. So they're labels, managers, agents, recording studios. And we're, I guess in a way you could say we represent them and we help be the voice of that industry, because you can't have an entire, it's easier for the 3 big nationals to come together and to, you know, advocate to the government or say, oh, hey, we need this. It's really hard for like hundreds and hundreds of indies across Canada. So we kind of represent them to the government. And so our company has 2 sides. It's advocating to the government, and then what I do, which is the trade side, which I can explain when you ask me about it later. Yeah.
And so what defines an independent artist or an indie artist? Is it really just not belonging to those big labels?
I think so. There's probably more of a detailed explanation to it, but if I were explaining it, I would just say they are not part of the multinationals. So the big 3. I mean, they could still have an affiliation with them somehow. Like we have artists who have certain parts, like they might have a publisher with Warner, but they're still with indies. So there is a bit of they could be an affiliation, but they are not signed to just Universal, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. But it's pretty a wide definition.
Oh yeah, I'd say so.
And so, what exactly is your role within CIMA?
So I'm the music export coordinator, and I guess the easiest way to explain it is that I work with Canadian companies, and we bring them abroad. So we take them to say South by Southwest in Austin, or Reeperbahn in Germany, or the Great Escape in London. So we kind of span the globe, and we create showcase opportunities for them, and we create business opportunities for them. So we connect them with industry people in Germany. So we'll set up business meetings for them or networking opportunities so that they can go down there, and they're kind of coming as a pack, and they're going down there rather than going on their own and trying to do business. We create those opportunities for them and bring them over there.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And how has the pandemic affected your work? I mean, it must have.
In every way possible. I'm very grateful I still have a job, to be honest, right now, because my job is going internationally to big events, and I can't do any of those things. So it's been really wild to have to kind of pivot my entire job and find ways to make it work, not traveling.
That must have been crazy, but I think that, like every other domain, every other company right now, you need to change. And I'm guessing that you've made changes within CIMA to make stuff happen despite it being locked down and everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so when did you realize, this is back when everything started, like let's say March, April, when did you realize that everything was going to change? Because, you know, back then things were still, you know, nobody knew how long it was going to be. But then big events suddenly started to get canceled. So when did you realize that, oh, this might be a little bit bigger than I thought?
Well, for us, we had the month of March, and I don't think I'll ever forget this, but our month of March was going to be absolutely insane. We said at the beginning of it, well, to the entire staff, well, we'll see you in April, because half the office was going to South by in Austin, and I was going to New York. And then the next week they were going to the Junos in Saskatchewan, and I was going to Estonia. And we just were not planning on seeing each other at all for, I think, 4 weeks, just the way it overlapped. And South by got canceled, like you said. That was the first big one that got canceled, and that was sent a real shockwave through the industry because nobody was expecting that. And then, but we kind of had to respect the fact that South by got canceled because the government there didn't want such a large gathering. It was too dangerous. So we kind of got that. But for me, it was when I got the phone call that Estonia got canceled, because Estonia's, I mean, in the middle of nowhere in Eastern Europe. And I was like, there's no way they're going to cancel it. I didn't even think they had cases. And when I got the call on that, I was like, okay. And then the whole staff flew down to the Junos in Saskatchewan and found out when they were there that it got canceled. So they had to turn around and fly back. So March was really, everything shut down, and we went, okay, this is serious.
Because like back then, you know, I think a lot of it was still played down. Nobody really thought it would have such a big impact. And even, you know, people who were starting to lock down a little bit here and there, they were being criticized, being told like, oh, you know, that's not necessary. Why are you doing this? And so I guess seeing all of that happen, you're like, oh.
Oh, my grandmother asked me, I think in like February, she's like, how is this going to affect your job? And I was like, oh, it's not. Like, it's not anywhere near here. And now I look back and I'm like, oh, man.
How wrong was I?
Oh, yeah, big time.
And so I know that you used to go to showcases and festivals a lot. You just mentioned it. Are they still happening virtually now?
They're just happening in a different capacity. Like you're seeing, I think it took people a couple of months to start getting showcases virtually, aside from the people who they got some done right away, but you can see the quality now versus the quality of the people who released things back in March. But they're recording in empty venues now, or they're recording from home. And so they are still doing it. Like we just did a showcase. Normally we go to Nashville in September. Obviously we couldn't. So we partnered with Australia and the UK, and we presented a showcase of 12 artists for this Nashville conference, which was now online. And it was recorded in Halifax and in BC. And this awesome production company out east put it together for us. And the UK and Australia did the same. And it was really awesome to kind of see that, and people from all over the world were able to watch it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I feel like these types of virtual gatherings, of virtual showcases, virtual events, they allow a bigger access to people too. So do you think that this is going to be something that's going to continue?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's hard. I mean, nothing compares to that live show, being at a show. But, and I think the thing that's been hardest to translate is showcases virtually. Like we can do business events virtually, but showcasing virtually is tough. And maybe in some capacity, people are learning to do this differently, which is great. And maybe it can be played off differently, and it can be used moving forward. But I don't know that. I think people are very excited for things to go live again.
Right. Well, François and I talked about this a couple of times where
we are.
Because like I'm somebody who never who liked to go out front in the front row and stuff like that a little bit less in the past few years. And now I'm like, I miss being surrounded, and I miss feeling gross.
All sweaty, full of beer and stuff.
It's crazy the things you realize that you missed during this, that's for sure.
Yeah. I never thought I'd like to be, you know, surrounded by sweaty people again, but here I am.
There you have it.
And so big events, the big events like South by, are they canceled? Are they postponed? Like how is that happen? How how are those events dealing with this?
South by, I think, was one of the only ones that flat out canceled because unfortunately for them, they were right at the beginning of this. So they had to cancel, but most of them have moved their dates to the fall. And they're happening now. So it's given them time to kind of create virtual editions. And they've done a really awesome job of pivoting and finding they've used all different sorts of platforms and everything. And it's really well done for what they could do.
Right.
And, but most of them are postponing. And even next year, it's looking like a lot of them are going to postpone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it maybe fall 2021, they're looking at maybe in person, but for now they don't want to cancel because they still want to offer the opportunity to people.
Yeah. Well, we talked about somebody who books shows, and he was saying how, you know, like everything is really they're looking way far ahead before really even thinking about having live events anymore.
Oh yeah. I mean, one of the conferences, I won't name them, but one of the conferences that we work with, they struggled at the beginning because they postponed it to, I think it was July, and then they had to postpone it to September. And now they're like, you know what, we'll get back to you when we know when we can hold it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's just, you know, it's kind of like our borders, they keep extending 28 days. But, you know, like back in the summer, they could have said fall and it would have been, yeah, it's understandable.
Yeah, definitely.
And so when I was looking through CIMA's social media, I saw that they did a survey to understand the impact of COVID back in March. And so that was pretty early on. So what did that show? What did that show? What did that really, how do I say this? Did that show anything interesting or anything surprising? Do you know?
Well, like I said, because we advocate for the indie community, we were trying to get information to the government as fast as possible,
Right.
As they were trying to put together programs and things to help. I don't know how much of the results I can discuss because I don't know. I don't actually know what was shared publicly and what was shared with the government.
No, that's fair.
But I do know that, I mean, we were the industry that closed first, and we're going to be the industry that opens last. So
Yeah.
there is a big need for help, and especially with the venues, because they're saying up to, I think it's something like 90% of indie venues they're saying could close by the end of this, which is really upsetting to hear. So yeah, I think that was a big thing, was how can we help the venues and how can we keep, like, we want to help everybody, of course, and the government wants to help everybody, and you don't want to see anybody have to shut down, but you need to keep those venues open because 90% of them closing, where are the artists going to play when they come back? So that was a big thing.
Yeah, because already in Montreal there aren't that many smaller venues.
Yeah, they've been closing.
Exactly. And imagine if they have to close now on top of that, you know, like having a small band come and they don't have anywhere to play because the smallest venue is now like Club Soda.
Well, that's it. And you can only have like, I think like, I don't know what Metropolis is called now. I think it changed its name.
Yeah. MTELUS now.
MTELUS,
no, it's never happened. Forget about it.
I know. It's just, I don't
still Metropolis. Forget about MTELUS.
It'll always be Metropolis. But even that was, I think they reopened it a month or two ago, and I think it holds like 2,000 people, and they were saying, oh, well, you can have 250 people there. And I was like, well, that's going to be a loss anyway.
I even saw the smaller venues try to get together and like get money or help each others. And I think it's Sobo House, at least they are in charge of that. They have a GoFundMe or something like that.
Yeah.
And they try to like stay strong until everything passed, but pretty sure it's kind of hard.
It's hard because they can't do anything. It's not even like the restaurants who can do patios outside, they can't do anything.
Exactly.
So it's rough.
Yeah. I know some of them were open during the summer for, you know, when there was 50 people gatherings were okay, but even then there was such lower capacity than usual.
Yeah.
So like at what point do you make money, or do you lose money, or do you even break even, you know?
That's the thing.
Put on a show.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about this a little bit, that, you know, a lot of organizations have been putting on online webinars and online networking events. And so what are the pros and cons of it being online like that?
I I think the biggest pro is that it gives an opportunity to people who wouldn't normally be able to attend those events.
Right.
So maybe it could be because there's another event that's happening at the same time, or it's too expensive just to be traveling that far, or maybe there's a junior at the company who wouldn't normally get to go to that. So it is really opening up a lot of opportunities for those people. And like CIMA is doing monthly, we team up with export offices around the world, and we've been doing monthly they're one-on-one sessions pretty much, where they get to meet with people from across the world. And normally we do that on site, and we have maybe 30 to 40 people there. Virtually, we have hundreds of people involved.
Wow.
So
Oh, but that's nice. So
it's-
there's an
yeah.
answer.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful, and it creates so much opportunity for all these people across the world. But and the other big positive I'd say is that it's helping emerging companies get ready for when things do open up again. So CIMA has been trying to create opportunities. Like we just did a mentorship session with Indie Week, where we mentored younger artists and maybe more emerging companies to learn how to get ready for these festivals, so they're not just going in blind pretty much. So we're getting to do that a little bit more. So there are big pros to it, and honestly, I'd say the only real con is you miss the face-to-face with people.
Yeah.
Like, you can't replace that. You can't replace like bumping into people at these events and getting to see everybody. But at least there is a lot of pros to it, which is
at least there has to be, right?
Oh yeah.
And so you mentioned that you can now mentor and that you can now teach people a little bit more about that. Do you think that's something that's going to continue even after things open up? Or are you going to like keep maybe some of the online stuff for people so that it's more accessible, and then also have the in-person?
I think that the one thing this is teaching us is like we are getting, when did we use Zoom before? I didn't even know Zoom before this started. So we are getting access to all these cool platforms and all these ways of video so I do definitely think that we can keep it going, especially before events, even if it's getting people ready, kind of like a pre-event info session and doing it virtual, or even maybe introducing them to, if we're going to Germany, getting some of the Germans on a call earlier and getting to know them, so that when they show up, they already kind of know them a little bit. So it is something we would like to look at continuing to do. Definitely. Yeah.
And that's nice, because probably before the quarantine, you probably didn't take time to do that. And now you have only time, but at least you can get to know each other and do like the small stuff, but worth it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We tried, but like you said, it's so busy and you're running all over the place. You couldn't really do it. So it's helping us kind of learn the best practices, I'd say, for doing this.
At least.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Indie Week. So how is Indie Week different this year? That's like the big Canadian event, right? For the indie music industry.
Indie Week is, yes, one of them. I'd say it's in pretty good company with Canadian Music Week and Breakout West on the West Coast and East Coast Music on the East. And I'd say there's about 10 pretty good ones. But in terms of Central Canada, Indie Week is awesome. And I highly recommend it to anybody who is in the area or who can go to the event.
Right.
I don't know exactly what they're doing. I do know that they have shifted online and they're being extremely proactive. They're doing indie weekly sessions, which is kind of webinars to teach the indie community all sorts of different things. And they're including a lot of international guests and everything.
That's cool.
But so they've been very active, and I imagine that this edition is going to be very well thought out and very educational for everybody. And again, a really great opportunity if someone lives on the East Coast or the West Coast and doesn't normally go to Indie Week, that they can tune in and be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's about all the questions that we had planned. Do you have anything else to add, François?
No, I think at least I get a better picture of what CIMA is doing, because at the beginning I wasn't sure if it was like a union or like, but yeah, maybe union was the best word I had for that. But now I understand it's more like help and service around an already existing industry.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, it's very hard to explain my job to people. Even my parents don't quite understand what I do. But the best way I can explain it is it's getting Canadians noticed abroad and giving Canadian companies and their artists the opportunities to. I mean, it's really important to make it at home. It's really really important to be known in Canada and to be able to tour here. But it's also really really great if you can make it abroad too.
Absolutely. And I think that's, for bands, that's what they strive for, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, the first step is getting known in your town, your province, and then the country. But then after that, it's breaking through to internationally is the next big step.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Jenia.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
It was really nice to talk to you again. We haven't spoken in a long time.
I know.
And so this was Sparkling Harmonies. We're your hosts, Lily.
François.
And we had Jenia here today with us. And you can listen to us again next week. Bye.
Bye.